The man who crashed his car in front of the presidential office is out on bail.
大法官性别均衡，大法官性别均衡，强化性别平等，强化性别平等。
More diversity on the bench. Reform groups demand better representation among Taiwan's top judges. Children put up for adoption during China's one-child policy era are tracing their roots. Plus, meet the Beijing delivery driver representing amateur athletes at the Paris Olympics. Good evening and welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Eric Gao. Thanks for tuning in. A man who crashed his car in front of Taiwan's presidential office has been released on bail. On Monday, the man first drove his car to the de facto U.S. Embassy in Taipei and repeatedly honked his horn. His car was spray painted with phrases including SOS National Cognitive Warfare. Police say he then drove to the presidential office and crashed into a raised flower bed in front, damaging 3 flower pots. No one was injured. Police say the man, surnamed Du, was agitated when he was initially interviewed. He has posted bail of around $6,000 US and is not allowed to leave the country. About half of the justices on Taiwan's highest court are set to step down this year. And as their seats open up, judicial reform groups are calling for greater gender diversity on the bench. Chris Gorn brings us this story.
大法官性别均衡，大法官性别均衡，强化性别平等，强化性别平等。
We're here at a press conference where judicial reform groups are calling for more gender and ethnic diversity among the nation's highest court, the Constitutional Court. Now, this court has 15 justices that serve 8-year terms, and 7 of those justices have terms expiring at the end of October, just 3 months from now. They're nominated by the president and approved by the legislature. Now, this court rules on all kinds of controversial issues in the society. For example, they are the court that made same-sex marriage the law of the land. And they're also set to issue a major ruling on whether or not the death penalty is constitutional. An alliance of judicial reform groups has put forth 7 recommendations for the nomination process, but really putting an emphasis on gender diversity.
积极的矫正过去在这个宪法的法庭上面总是以男性观点为主的这个现况。
There are currently 5 women serving on the court, one of which has a term expiring in October. These groups are hoping that President Lae will nominate even more women this time around, leading to a more diverse court. But whatever the president decides to do, he may face challenges getting his nominees through an opposition-led legislature. Scott Huang and Chris Gorin for TaiwanPlus.
Now, Taiwan's government watchdog is challenging controversial legislative reforms. The Control Yuan is the latest branch of government to petition the Constitutional Court for a review of amendments that give the legislature more investigative powers. Now, those amendments were passed by the opposition-controlled legislature. Opposition lawmakers say that they are necessary for government accountability. But the president, his cabinet, and the governing party's legislative caucus all say that they are unconstitutional. The Control Yuan is adding its voice to that now. It says the reforms undermine its own investigative powers. The Constitutional Court has already agreed to review these amendments. An apartment block in Taipei is set to be the first to be rebuilt under a plan to fix up the city's aging housing. And in a city where most apartments are over 3 decades old, there's a lot more work to be done. John Venturis reports.
It's taken a lot of negotiation, but crumbling ceilings were the final straw. Over 90% of residents in the Songbo apartment complex have agreed to a reconstruction plan, meaning it will go ahead. This will be the first apartment block rebuilt under a plan the Taipei city government launched in 2020. 70% of Taipei's housing units are over 30 years old, meaning they predate toughened building codes meant to make structures earthquake safe. But earthquakes aren't the only problem. Many older buildings, including the 38-year-old Songpo complex, were built with sea sand mixed into the concrete. This concrete flakes, and over time, it corrodes the rebar inside too. Many residents of the Songpo complex have long felt that their building was unsafe, and they're relieved it's going to be rebuilt.
天花板崩塌啊，然后那个女儿墙倒塌，那有些住户只要遇到地震，就是往1楼跑。
这几年都 一直都有点住得不太安心。我以住户代表来看的话，我没有遇到说反对的意见。
There are sacrifices they'll have to make, though. The city government says the apartments in the new building may be much smaller.
其实坪数换下来没有到1坪换1坪，我们大概我算一算，大概只有1坪换0.5多而已。解决我们住户的一些居住上的安全来讲，还是一个蛮好的一个解决途径啦。
It's taken 2 bidding processes and much discussion among residents just to get this far. Now they have a construction firm for the job. There's the other problem rebuilding plans like this face, actually getting the job done. Getting started can be slow, though industry insiders say things will get easier.
切工切料虽然会造成工期的 delay 呢，但是不是完全无解。尤其在今年呢，政府劳动部开放外劳之后呢，更让我们在移工方面有所补充。
But the deal is done now, and eventually the 130 residents will get new homes. But this is just one building, far from the city's initial rebuilding target of 5 to 10. And the amount of work it's taken just to get to this point shows how far the city still has to go to modernize its buildings. Luffy Li and John Van Trieste in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
The U.S.'s top representative to Taiwan has been awarded a special medal for diplomacy. Sandra Outkirk has been the director of the American Institute in Taiwan since 2021, and she's the first woman to hold that position. The organization serves as the U.S.'s de facto embassy to Taipei. Taiwan's foreign ministry presented Outkirk with the award during the last week of her tenure for her extraordinary efforts in enhancing bilateral relations.
The long-standing U.S.-Taiwan relationship is only getting stronger. Fundamentally, that is because we share a vision of a free, open, prosperous, and secure Indo-Pacific region, in addition to an abiding interest in maintaining peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait.
And coming up after the break, an award-winning indigenous filmmaker shares her journey to cinematic success. Stay tuned.
Hello and welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm Inka Vat. Today we examine China's engagement with Africa.
Unfortunately, this very aggressive form of cultural revolution-like politics in China seems to be moving forward in this modern era.
This grave injustice is happening.
The issue is, what can the U.S. do to help strengthen Taiwan?
We need that kind of mindset to prepare for the warfare.
What implications does this have on Taiwan and the region as a whole?
Just like Ukraine right now, you need people to understand we're doing this for our own country.
Reaffirmed our support for the Taiwanese ability to make their own decisions about their own future.
It's very hard to duplicate in the short time. Taiwan still can continue being the leading position if we put efforts on R&D.
And you are riding on a wave. This is exactly the time you need to double down.
Or I did not realize I am actually running to be the first Asian woman in the state senate. Our next generation, they can see Asian American is as equal and have the same platform.
Taiwan Talks provides a platform for the voices and perspectives that are shaping our country.
For more stories from Taiwan, around the world, and in front of a World War II-era aircraft carrier, please download the TaiwanPlus app. It's bigger than it looks.
Start your weekend with a cup of coffee and a moment to reflect on what happened this week.
Hello and welcome.
We've got you covered, from defense and politics to high tech and the arts.
Not just to Taiwan, the whole world is watching.
You make the coffee,
we make the news.
Here's what happened on TaiwanPlus.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. U.S. President Joe Biden has condemned a Supreme Court decision to grant former President Donald Trump partial immunity for his role in the January 6th U.S. Capitol riots.
Today's decision almost certainly means that there are virtually no limits on what a president can do. This is a fundamentally new principle, and it's a dangerous precedent.
The U.S. Supreme Court voted 6-3 along ideological lines to grant all former presidents partial immunity from criminal charges. This means actions taken by Trump in an official capacity as president will be granted immunity, though unofficial ones could be used as evidence in court. The judgment delays the criminal case against Trump for allegedly undermining the result of the 2020 U.S. presidential election, which he lost to Biden. The U.S. Supreme Court does have a conservative majority. South Korea's defense ministry says North Korea may be lying about the success of a recent ballistic missile test.
북한의 공개 보도에 대해 기만 가능성에 무게를 두고 평가를 하고 있습니다.
Now, North Korea said it verified the stability and accuracy of the missile after it was launched on Monday, and that it was capable of carrying a, quote, super large nuclear warhead. However, South Korea says the missile flew erratically and exploded over the north. They also pointed out that North Korea did not release photos or video of the test, suggesting that it did not go as planned. China's one-child policy prevented hundreds of millions of births, while many children were abandoned or put up for adoption. Now, those adopted children are trying to find their birth parents. Rosie Greninger reports.
Handing out flyers in Dianjiang, southwest China, a 19-year-old Lu Li searches for her biological parents. Abandoned shortly after being born in this rural town, Lu Li was adopted by a couple from the US. She believes her birth parents may have given her up, fearful of China's one-child policy that was in place from 1979 to 2016. It punished families for having additional children. Lu Li is among a growing number of young adults returning to China to understand their roots and track down lost family.
I'd want them to know that, I'm happy and healthy, and I'm grateful for the life that I'm living.
But hundreds of millions of others didn't get the chance to be born. China imposed the one-child policy to control its rapidly growing population and has been condemned for forcing abortions, contraception and sterilizations. This also drove up infanticide rates and permanently skewed China's ratio of men to women due to a cultural preference towards boy babies. The policy led to more than 82,000 Chinese-born children being adopted by American families, most of them girls. And as those children reach adulthood, the demand for reunions is high. This according to Lu Li's adoptive mother, who founded an organization to help Chinese adopted children reconnect with their birth families, which isn't always easy, given political tensions between the two countries.
If they want to find their roots, there's part of them, they're proud to be Chinese. They're proud where they come from. So I really wish the process would be facilitated a little more. And who knows, maybe in years it will, because it should be beyond politics. It's a matter of heart.
DNA samples are collected by the Roots for Love organization in China and the US. And if a pair is matched, the long-lost relatives will be put in touch. Because of the one-child policy, 57-year-old Yi Eng-ching put his infant daughter up for adoption in the 1990s. He faced penalties, including the demolition of his home, confiscated farm animals, and serious fines if he was found with more than one child. Now, through DNA technology, he hopes to reconnect. Although patchy records means finding a match is unlikely, there have been success stories. With the support of her adopted family, though equipped only with photos of herself as a baby, Lu Li hopes to be among those able to reunite with long-lost relatives. Patrick Chen and Rosie Greninger for TaiwanPlus.
The glow of neon lights that once brightened the streets of Hong Kong are fading, but some Hong Kongers are bringing the city's iconic signage back to life. Tiffany Wong reports.
A resting place for one of Hong Kong's most iconic sites. This NGO is collecting abandoned neon signs from around the city in hopes of preserving the dying cultural symbol that once lit up its streets.
Neon is not only signboards, it could be art and craft. And then at the same time,
it gives Hong Kong identity, I mean visual identity as well.
Okay.
Advertising restaurants, dance halls, and all kinds of shops, the colorful signs are made of glass tubes filled with neon gas. Each one took careful craftsmanship that made them unique. But the NGO Tetra Neon Exchange estimates there are only around 500 neon signs still in use in the city. Thousands have been taken down over the past decade due to safety concerns and maintenance costs. But some local architects say preserving the neon signs is well worth the cost, and that they are symbols of the city's consumerist traditions, too.
In order to attract customers, they have to build a sign that is like going perpendicular to the building facade to really attract the people's eyeball when they walk along the street. And when one shop builds one here, the other want to build a bigger one. And then the other one want to build a larger one that attracts more like attention. So with this like layering and competition, resulting in like very diverse.
And it's this diversity that makes Hong Kong's skyline stand out, representing the vibrancy of the city and its residents, who will continue to seek ways to keep those lights on. Eason Pan and Tiffany Wong for TaiwanPlus.
This summer, people from around the world will be heading to Paris for the Olympic Games. Among them will be spectators, elite athletes, and at least one delivery driver from Beijing. Bryn Thomas has the story.
On August 10th, amateur triathletes will tread the same course as some of the world's top runners. Part of an effort to make the Olympics more accessible, the Marathon pour tous, or Marathon for all, will see lay people test themselves on the same 42-kilometer course used in the Summer Olympic Games.
就是普通大众选手很难有这种机会站到奥运的舞台嘛，然后这次巴黎奥组委就是能给这个普通大众提供这样的舞台，我觉得还是非常激动的。
Yu Shuai is one of the 20,000 hopefuls selected by lottery to compete in the event. A delivery person by trade, he spends his free time pounding the pavement in China's capital, Beijing.
就是可以把工作也当成训练的一部分，然后本身我们送快递也是体力劳动嘛，是吧？然后你看我不管是卸车、分货，然后给客户报的货、给客户送货、上下楼，然后都可以当成体能训练。
Chinese couriers are known for their speed and hustle. For Yu Shuai, working for JD Logistics is good practice. Day in and day out, he's darting around the sprawling city with weights on his legs, carrying packages up and down stairwells.
实际上我们一天送货下来的话，步数也都是2、3万、3、4万步数嘛啊，然后每天给客户送货上下楼，然后我就绑着沙袋送货，这样的话一天下来，虽然说头几天挺累的哈，但是坚持一段时间我就逐渐适应了，而且我发现当我下班的时候把沙袋摘下来之后，我的2条腿就是特别轻。
This summer, he's attempting to beat his personal best of 2 hours and 26 minutes. And while he's excited to see some famous landmarks along the way, the Eiffel Tower and Versailles, he's also curious to check in with his colleagues in the City of Light.
然后再有一个就是我还特别期待想去到我们那个，因为法国听说也有我们京东的物流仓嘛，我特别想去到我们那个物流仓里面去看一下那边的快递小哥他们怎么送货，和我们国内会有什么不一样的地方。
This summer, people from around the world will be headed to Paris for the Olympic Games. Among the spectators and elite athletes, this Beijing courier will be vying for personal Olympic glory. James Lin and Bryn Thomas for TaiwanPlus.
Hurricane Beryl has intensified into a top-level Category 5 storm as it batters the Caribbean. Packing wind speeds of up to 257 kilometers per hour, Beryl is leaving widespread damage across countries in the region, snapping trees in half and ripping roofs off houses. At least one person is dead. The storm has been fueled by record-high Atlantic temperatures. Taiwan has launched a new carbon credit project in a bid to achieve some of its carbon reduction goals. The tree planting project in Paraguay follows the launch of a similar mangrove restoration project in Myanmar last month. And it's the first of its kind to be listed on Taiwan's carbon trading system, which lets polluting companies in Taiwan buy so-called carbon credits to offset their CO2 emissions. It's being hailed in Taiwan as a viable path towards the country's goal of reaching net zero emissions by 2050. But offsets are widely criticized for allowing companies to pay to continue polluting. A team of scientists at National Donghua University are helping create artificial reefs using non-biodegradable plastics and other seabed debris. Irene Lin looks at how their efforts could help restore marine ecosystems.
With trash bags and tongs in hand, these people are carrying out a special ocean cleaning operation. They're gathering materials for a larger project to restore the habitat for local sea life. The group from Taiwan's National Donghua University has scooped up more than 420 kilograms of garbage from the ocean seafloor.
只要是捡拾啊，海里面有危害生态的一些相关的一些海废，好像是保特瓶啊、渔网啊、轮胎。我们觉得比较特别的是哦，这渔网其实蛮多的哦。那像是我们有发现到说有很多的这些热带鱼类啊都被渔网给卡住了。
With their new technology, these scientists are using a high-temperature gasifying process to turn marine waste into a charcoal-like material called biochar. When made into artificial reefs, they say its properties make it a perfect home for marine life and offer additional benefits for the environment.
生物炭它以往就是20年到50年之间，又慢慢会释放出碳到空气里面。 好，那所以我们后来想了一个方法，如果我们可以把这些生物炭，把它固着在我们目前所开发的像是这个人工鱼礁里面的话，我们就可以把碳给封存到这个海床底下。
Biochar is known for its ability to absorb net carbon in the environment, and it has had other applications on land, such as improving soil quality in farmlands. Though human activity continues to produce pollution and endanger the environment, the team at Donghua University is a small example of how scientists here and around the world are finding ever more creative ways to protect local ecosystems. Eason Chen and Irene Lin for TaiwanPlus.
An old fishing tradition that was in danger of dying out has made an unexpected comeback thanks to its popularity with tourists. John Ventrias takes a look.
Just after dusk, a lone fishing boat leaves a harbor on Taiwan's north coast. Decades ago, hundreds like it plied this coast off the Jinshan region in search of sardines. But these days, the last surviving boat of its kind is filled with tourists instead. And they've come to witness a fishing technique unlike any other. The fishing crew lights a massive flame above the prow, sending a huge school of sardines leaping in a sparkly display. Dazzled by the light, they're easily caught up in nets. Once a staple in these parts, sardines are now mostly fed to bigger fish on farms, and their value has dropped to the point where this fire fishing tradition nearly died. But since 2012, fishing folk here have been turning their old technique into a tourist spectacle. Jian Shikai, now in his early 30s, comes from a family with ties to fishing. He's now one of the younger people in this fishing tourism trade. He joined up after his military service, at a time when money was tight.
我刚回来的时候，环境就整个改变了。那时候剩6万，甚至到隔年只剩下3000块而已，3个月时间，一直坚持到后面，刚好之前的业者，旅游的业者，他就问我说，要不要去配合专心观光？好，不止黄港，甚至社区一起来推动的话，或许我们这一代会是蛮有发展潜力的。
Today, the final fire fishing boat has a guaranteed future, ensuring a piece of local Taiwanese tradition does too. Justin Wu and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Movie director Lae Mayo won the Golden Horse Award for Best Director in 2022, becoming the first indigenous woman to win the coveted prize for Chinese language cinema. Joyce Sun reports on how her work showcases Atayal culture.
Back home, where it all began in this village, Taiwanese film director Lae Mayo, the first indigenous woman to win Best Director at the Golden Horse Awards, thinks back on her first movie, Finding Seiyun, which features scenes on this same street. She's from Ropway in northeastern Yilan County, a village local indigenous groups collectively now call the Jingyue community. Lae Mayo says she found herself in film by chance after failing her university entrance exams. She had her sister fill out her applications for her instead. She ended up in the film department at Taipei's Shixin University after working on sets with famed directors like Zhang Zuoji and Cai Mingliang. She says it was time to find her own story to tell and landed on an old village story of Seiyun's bell.
我当然听说这个故事，后来发现它跟我是多么的密切，因为这个
被冲走的、被纪念的这个傻运，她就是我的表姑婆，然后我的奶奶也在这个事件中。
Lae Mayo wrote her first film about life for her people, the Atayal, under Japanese colonial rule of Taiwan. She then went on to explore other aspects of Atayal life, like the quirks of village elections in her 2022 film Gaga, a movie which won 5 Golden Horse Awards, the most prestigious film awards in Taiwan. Aside from a journey of self-discovery, Lae Mayo has fostered the talents of others through her creative endeavors, like actor Yukan Luzing, who started working with Lae Mayo at just 12 years old and has now traveled abroad with her on projects.
What stories do you want to be in? What do you want to do?
Lae Mayo's latest project stars Yukan Luzing in a short as part of the U.S. nonprofit Nia Terra Project, which brings together indigenous creators from around the world.
我觉得其实对自己的文化，你有信心、跟自信、跟理解的时候，其实你对外你都是不会担心的。
Lae Mayo says she hopes her work can inspire Atayal youth and those from other communities and give indigenous people their own cinematic voice. Kamashu and Joyce Zhen for TaiwanPlus.
Thanks for joining us for TaiwanPlus News. Finally, today, check out this exhibition at the National Museum of Taiwan Literature down in Tainan. Postcards from 18 countries offer their blessings on Tainan's 400th anniversary. I'm Eric Gao, and I'll see you tomorrow.